Hello, everyone. My name is Abigail Gonzalez, and I am one of the dietitians here at RPM Logix. I am the nutrition and health director for all of the nutrition services that are available to you guys. And today we're going to have a very interesting presentation that we hope and want you to learn from and get all of the information. RPM Logix and your physicians have joined to provide all of this information and presentations to help with our mission, which is to educate, coach, and motivate everyone to live healthier lives. You are all members of our program, which gives you access to nurses, registered dietitians, and diabetes educators. Let us know how we can help and support you. Speak to your care managers, email, or call us to explore how you can expand your participation with us. This webinar will be around 30 minutes, and after the 30 minutes, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. During the 30 minutes, there's a little box under that says Q&A. There's a button at the bottom. You can click there and type your questions and send them. And then at the end, we're going to cover those questions, and I'm going to read them out loud for Suzanne, and she's the one who's going to be answering. Everyone's participation is private. And you can use the Zoom controls on the bottom of your screen to post those questions, and then we can read them. Today, the presentation is going to be delivered by Suzanne. She's one of our dietitians. She's been working with RPM Logix for over a year, and we are very lucky to have her. She's one of our experts in plant-based eating. She grew up in Nebraska, and she became interested in nutrition since she was in high school. She wanted to better understand how to manage chronic conditions through therapeutic lifestyle and interventions. And she has been a registered dietitian since 2002. She has a bachelor's in nutrition and a master's in education in health promotion. She's also a certified diabetes educator and specialist, and it's also a member of Lifestyle Medicine Professional. Her background includes performing individual consultations on a wide range of health conditions. And she uses evidence-based information, and you will see it in this presentation today. And she it's focused on a wellness and lifestyle perspective, and it's here to support you and to encourage you, as well as to give you try to transmit all of the information that she knows. In her free time, she enjoys running. She also likes to read. She likes to spend time with her dog, which she loves, and his name is Thomas. Let's give it up to Suzanne and learn everything that she has to say about healthy eating and plant-based eating.
Thank you very much. So welcome to our plant-based nutrition class. We are glad that you are here. And I know that you've probably been hearing a lot about different diets out there, and a plant-based diet is one of them due to its increase in popularity. So today we're going to talk about the benefits and guidelines of a plant-based diet if you do choose to follow various aspects of one. So my name is Suzanne Rogers. I am a registered dietitian, and that is my little dog with me in the picture. His name is Thomas. So he is with me today. So if you hear him barking, that is Thomas. So I thought I would introduce him, but he's taking a nap, so hopefully he'll be quiet. Okay, and when it comes to nutrition, my philosophy is I believe in starting with where the person is at in their health journey and making small changes over time. This is about progression and not perfection. I believe a healthy meal plan should be enjoyable, sustainable, nourishing, filling, and energizing. And the first step to achieving this is learning about the basics of a plant-based diet. So these are the different topics we will talk about today. Hopefully it will help you along with your health journey if you do choose to follow various aspects of this plant-based meal plan. So we'll talk about foods to consume in abundance, in moderation, and avoid or limit, substitutions for animal products, nutrients of interest, getting started with meal planning, sample meal ideas, and tips for eating out. So in recent times, nutritional science has moved away from looking at individual nutrients and focusing more on healthy foods and dietary patterns. And the core components of a healthy dietary pattern has been agreed upon for decades. And this includes an increase in fruits, veggies, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, and a decreased intake of red meat, processed meats, and processed foods. And within this framework are a number of dietary patterns that are plant predominant, meaning they're wholesome plant-based foods, but they vary a little bit. Some may be fully whole food plant-based. Some may include a little bit of fish or dairy and eggs. So they can vary, and each person can decide what type of meal plan works best for them and their family. So we have abundant evidence supporting a plant-based diet in relation to lowering the risk of chronic diseases and sometimes even putting them into remission. And so these are some of the benefits that we do see. So a reduction in body weight, and that's because plant-based foods are so low in calories, but they promote fullness, so they can help with weight loss. Improved glucose control, insulin sensitivity, which is the root of diabetes, and reductions in hemoglobin A1C, reduction in both total and LDL cholesterol levels. LDL is the bad cholesterol that's highly associated with heart disease. It can help lower blood pressure, lower markers of inflammation, such as C-reactive protein, and inflammation is the root cause of most health conditions as well, lower rates of cancer, and essential for planetary health, and it cultivates compassion, and this is important for all of us. So these are the foods you want to consume in abundance on a plant-based diet. So they're mostly wholesome, unrefined plant foods. You want to consume a variety of these different foods and a variety within the food groups because we want to get all of the colors of the nutrition rainbow. So vegetables are the lowest in calorie density at 100 calories a pound, but they're the highest in nutrients. So we want a lot of vegetables. They also have a lot of fiber to promote fullness. So leafy greens, carrots, tomatoes, bell peppers, broccoli, asparagus, fruit as well. A lot of people worry about the sugar content in fruit, but that is our energy source that fuels every cell of our body. And fruit has fiber, that structure that causes slow release into the blood, the way nature intended. And fruit is 60 to 95% water, so it's a low-calorie food, but hydrating, and it has vitamins and antioxidants, so it's very health-promoting. And vary the types: apples, oranges, bananas, mango, any type is fine. And we also want whole grains and healthy starches or starchy vegetables. So these are actually what's going to satiate you at the meals. We want to make sure that these are included. They're also even higher in fiber than most of the fruits and vegetables. And they give you energy. So we want to make sure these are included. So whole grains are like whole grain bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice, wild rice, quinoa. Starchy vegetables would be corn, peas, potatoes, or winter squash like butternut or acorn. And then we want legumes, which are beans, peas, and lentils. So this is going to be your plant-based protein. And these are the highest in fiber. So we want to get them in the diet for that reason too. They have antioxidants, and they're also going to be your source of calcium and iron from a plant-based food. And lots of herbs and spices because these are going to add flavor and color, but they have their own nutrients in them as well. So we want to get a variety of all of these food groups in large quantities and vary the types so that you don't get bored. These are foods that we want to consume in moderation. These are very healthy foods, but they're very high in calorie density. And that's due to their high fat content with some of these, and they're really easy to overconsume too. So nuts and seeds are so good for you. They are associated with living a long, healthy life. So we do recommend eating them every day, actually. But because they are so high in calories, we just need maybe an ounce a day, like a small handful. So all nuts are good, all seeds. We want a variety of types because they do have different nutrients. I recommend eating them with a meal, not by themselves, because their healthy fat content can help you absorb the nutrients from the food you're eating. And then it's easy to not overconsume them when they're more like part of a meal instead of by themselves as a snack, for example. Avocados are really great as well. So they add a nice creaminess to foods where cheese may not be present. They're high in fiber, but they are high in calorie density. So maybe just half an avocado a day. Dried fruit can fit as well, but the difference with fresh fruit is that it has so much water in it. So that's what makes it so low calorie. So dried fruit is going to be a little bit more concentrated in calories. So if you have it, keep it to a quarter cup. Coconut, a little bit of that can fit too for some variation, but it does tend to be higher in calories. And it does have more saturated fat, which is not as good for heart health. And then we have dairy alternatives. So these are optional. They do not have to be in the diet, but we all grew up drinking milk or having it with cereal or cooking with it. So these can be included. And that would be like unsweetened soy, almond, or oat milks. The type will depend on your taste preference or nutritional concerns, and plant-based yogurts are available as well. And then these are the foods we want to avoid or limit. So the standard American diet is really high in meat and dairy and processed foods. So that means a lot of fat, sugar, and salt, but not enough of the fiber and the nutrient dense foods that I just mentioned. So that puts us at higher risk of chronic conditions. So we want to minimize animal products, including poultry, fish, red meat, eggs, and dairy, refined grains and foods with added sugar. So think white bread, white rice, white pasta, sweets or desserts, oils, especially if you're trying to lose weight because they are so calorie dense. No matter the type, they are 120 calories per tablespoon. On a plant-based diet, it's very easy to avoid oil. You can saute vegetables in water or a low sodium broth. Just a tablespoon at a time is all that's needed to prevent sticking, or you can roast vegetables or potatoes on parchment paper and they don't stick. And then ultra processed foods, those are foods that are often prepackaged or they just look very different than their original source. So think Twinkies, Oreos, chips, and cookies. And I do want to mention no food is ever off limits, but these are the foods we want to minimize. Okay, so a meal that is based on fruits, veggies, whole grains, beans, like you see in the picture there, it's going to be balanced and give you all of the nutrients you need. So you don't need to worry about these individual nutrients with the exception of vitamin B12, but I will discuss that. But we do get a lot of questions when it comes to plant-based diets about protein and iron and these other nutrients you see here. So I'm going to go through them and give some tips. And I do want to point out, though, that any meal plan you decide to follow, whether it's plant-based or not, does require some planning and some supplementation. Okay, so protein, very important. It builds and maintains muscle, boosts metabolism, transports oxygen and nutrients around your body, and heals wounds. And this is probably the biggest question I get is, where do you get your protein? So protein originally comes from plants. Animals eat plants, and that's how they get protein. So it is the original source, and all plants have all the essential and non-essential amino acids, just in different quantities. So we just have to make sure we get a variety of different types of plant foods to get all of those. And here's some types of proteins you can include. So beans and lentils, they can be added to salads, tacos, burritos, stews, chilies, or curries. Hummus is great as a dip or a spread like on a sandwich or in a quesadilla. Pasta sauce, so I'll make a pasta sauce by using hummus and adding a little bit of the pasta water, and it makes a nice creamy sauce. Tofu, you can use the soft for soups. It creates a creamier texture, or you can use the firm or extra firm for like stir fries. Tempeh is fermented soybeans, and it has a mild, nutty flavor, and then it has kind of like a chewy texture. And this is a great substitute for breakfast meats with the right seasonings. You can also use it in stir fries. Nuts and seeds are wonderful because they can be added directly to foods like cereals or salads. You can also blend them to make sauces or dressings. So for example, I blend some cashews with some herbs and spices to make a nice ranch dressing. And that's a good way to add nuts to your salads because, like I said, the fat in the nuts help you absorb the nutrients from the vegetables. Iron is another big one I get a lot of questions on, and it's needed to make hemoglobin that red blood cells use to transport oxygen around the body. And the Goldilocks rule applies here. We want the right amount of iron. So iron deficiency is common worldwide. And by following a plant-based diet, it does not put you at higher risk of iron deficiency anemia. And on the other hand, getting too much iron can actually be damaging because our body can't get rid of excess amounts. And it could lead to free radical formation. And this could put you at higher risk of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, cognitive dysfunction. And there's two types of iron, heme and non-heme. So non-heme we get from plants. And what's interesting about that type of iron is we will absorb it when we need it, but not when we don't. So our body is able to regulate iron absorption from plants. Heme iron that comes from animal products, our body will absorb whether or not it needs it. And that's when we can get too much. And then, like I said, we don't have a way to get rid of excess amounts of iron. So here's some plant-based sources of iron and some of the top iron sources within each category. So for legumes, lentils, chickpeas, beans, and tofu. For grains, quinoa, amaranth, We eat fortified grains, seeds, all seeds, and then cashews, pine nuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, and for vegetables, peas, string beans, leafy greens, and for fruit, prunes, and dried fruit. So just keep in mind, if you eat beans and greens, you will get all of the iron that you need. And we also have iron absorption enhancers. So these are foods that help us absorb iron better from the foods that we eat. So that would be foods rich in vitamin C. And believe it or not, red bell peppers are the highest in vitamin C. So if you really like those, you can add them to a salad or a stir fry. Citrus fruits are great. So for example, if I have a salad, I'll put a squeeze of lemon on it, and that will give me some vitamin C. There's also strawberries, broccoli, and tomatoes. Alien vegetables like garlic and onions, beta carotene rich foods. Those are foods that are yellow or orange in color like carrot, sweet potato, cantaloupe, winter squash, and spices like pepper, turmeric, and ginger. So these iron enhancers do need to be present at the same meal that does include iron. So if you have greens and beans like a salad and you put a squeeze of lemon for vitamin C, that's how you can combine those different food groups. Calcium, so this is a very important one as well. It's needed to build and maintain strong bones, and it also helps the heart, muscles, and nerves function properly. And calcium is actually an element that comes from the earth, and it gets absorbed into the plants and concentrated in the leaves of green plants. And that's actually how a cow gets calcium, is by eating grass. They do not make calcium, they get it from plants. And that's how we can get it as well. And we actually absorb calcium better from vegetables. Green vegetables than we do from dairy. And that would be like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, collards, and other leafy greens. Chickpeas, pinto beans, chia seeds, almonds, calcium set tofu, tempeh, oranges, figs, raisins, and calcium fortified plant-based milks. So if you feel like you're not getting enough greens or beans in your diet, you can have 1 to 2 servings of fortified plant-based milks a day to make sure that you're getting your needs met. And keep in mind, when it comes to bone health, it's not just about calcium. We do want to make sure we get adequate vitamin D. Doing some weight-bearing exercises like walking, hiking, dancing, or playing tennis. Making sure the diet's low in sodium and more alkaline, meaning not too much animal protein and more fruits and vegetables, and also not getting too much alcohol or caffeine in the diet, because those can negatively affect calcium absorption. Vitamin D, so this is actually a hormone, and it's needed for calcium absorption, and it does help to enhance the immune system. And we don't really get it from foods. It's produced by sunlight on your skin. It is sometimes fortified in foods, but that's not really a reliable source to obtain adequate amounts. So if we get about 20 minutes of sun exposure on the face and arms a few times a week, that can help us get our vitamin D. This needs to be during midday sun exposure, such as 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. But supplementation is often necessary because, during the summer, we're wearing sunscreen, and that may block the vitamin D production. Or when you're in northern climates, especially during cooler months like the winter, you just don't have access to adequate amounts of vitamin D. So usually a starting point is about 2,000 units of vitamin D supplementation a day for most people. Some may even need more possibly. But that's something to talk about with your doctor. So vitamin B12 is essential on a plant-based diet. So it's important for healthy nerves and blood cells. It is not produced by plants or animals, but actually by bacteria. And animals are able to accumulate this bacteria over their lives, but humans cannot do that. And we believe humans used to get this bacteria from food and water, but now that in our modern society, we clean our food and water, which is a good thing, we are no longer able to get vitamin B12 this way. So supplementation is necessary on a plant-based diet. And we have found that for those over age 50, they often need vitamin B supplementation as well, because they just don't absorb it as well anymore. And the RDA is very small, just 2.4 micrograms a day. The supplements come in much bigger doses, just to make sure you absorb adequate amounts. And so for those below age 65, it's 50 to 100 micrograms a day. And for over age 65, it's 500 to 1,000 micrograms a day of supplementation. Omega-3 fatty acids. So these are important for brain and heart health, and they may help lower cancer risks, especially from the flax seeds. They help to lower the risk of hormone-related cancers like breast and prostate. The best sources are your nuts and seeds, specifically walnuts and ground flax seeds, chia seeds, or hemp seeds. Try to get those in the diet daily. So that would be a quarter cup of the walnuts or a tablespoon or 2 of the seeds. And they're all good. You can do a rotation. I like the chia seeds like you see in the picture there. They look like pepper, but they don't taste like anything. But I put them in salads, pasta dishes, on my bowl meals. They're the highest in fiber, whereas the ground flax seeds are great. Like I said, if somebody has a concern of a certain type of cancer that maybe runs in their family, or they're a cancer survivor. And then hemp seeds are the highest in protein, so it's good to vary them. Other sources include leafy greens, fruits, and beans. And we are finding, though, even when you include these foods in the diet on a consistent basis, that supplementation of omega-3 fatty acids is important. And that would be about 200 to 300 milligrams per day of an algae-based supplement. So when making lifestyle changes, it's important to think about your why to making these changes. Why is it important to you? How is this going to make your life better? Because it can be difficult to change our habits, and we don't live in a society that's very supportive of healthy lifestyle changes. So it does take some time. And think about what it is for you. I have some people say they want to get off of their medications, or they want to be fit and travel or play with their grandchildren. So think about what that is. I also like to ask myself the question, what am I gaining? Because a lot of times we focus on what we're giving up, but when we shift our thoughts to what are we gaining, it's so much easier. So you might realize that you have more energy, you're sleeping better, you have better digestive health, there's weight loss, and focus on what's gained, not what's given up. And write it down and put it somewhere where you see often, like the bathroom mirror or the refrigerator. Okay, so getting started with meal planning for a plant-based diet. So many methods. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but the 3-step method does help. So number 1, you start with plant-based meals that you already consume. So maybe you like pasta dishes. So just make sure you use pasta with marinara sauce, add some white beans like chickpeas, and some veggies. Step 2, think about meals you consume that could be easily made plant-based. So maybe you like tacos, but instead of ground beef, we can use lentils or black beans. Or with toast, instead of butter, you can add avocado or nut butter or hummus. So just some easy swaps. And number 3 is the most fun part. That's starting or try new plant-based recipes. So every week or every other week, try a new plant-based recipe, save the ones you like, create a rotation, and that will make this a lot easier too. So you might want to invest in some kitchen tools and cookbooks, maybe look into websites that have meal planning apps and things like that. So these are just suggestions. You don't need all of these things, but everybody has different time constraints and schedules and cooking skills and budgets. So these are just suggestions, but you can get a food processor or personal blender. I use a personal blender to make my salad dressings with the nuts. Instant pot or rice cooker, so you can cook a big batch of beans or rice for the week. Chef's knife to cut all of those veggies. Steamer basket, large pot, and nonstick skillet, because remember, it's a lot of cooking without oil. Rimmed baking sheets, vegetable peeler, zester grater, lemon squeezer, because we're going to flavor foods up that way a lot of times, and airtight containers if you're going to food prep. That's really helpful. Some websites, forksoverknives.com, pcrm.org, that stands for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, nutritionstudies.org, and nutritionfacts.org. Great websites, and they have no commercial funding, which is good as well. And you can also do a Google search for whole food plant-based recipes, find something that speaks to you, but these are some of my favorites if you want to try these. So the Vegan 8 has 8 ingredients or less, so that's kind of nice. And then plantu.com, plantifulkiki.com, straightupfood.com. Those are all really good, just simple everyday plant-based recipes with ingredients that you can find at the regular grocery store. And then plant-based on a budget's my new favorite one. So it's really simple recipes and taking cost into consideration. So you can give those a try and see if any of those speak to you. So when transitioning to a plant-based diet, there can be an increase in gas and bloating, and this has to do with the increase in fiber intake. Believe it or not, only 3% of Americans are hitting their fiber goals. On a plant-based diet, you will get a lot of fiber because pretty much everything you eat will be plant-based and contain fiber. And so the body can adjust to high fiber diets, but it does need some time. What happens is we have trillions of gut bacteria in our large colon. and they are fiber feeders. That's their food source. And so this is great because we're going to give them the food that they need to flourish, and they will keep us really healthy. But our body does need to learn to adjust to a high fiber diet. So here's some tips. Eat slowly and chew well. When we eat, we swallow a lot of air. So if you take the time to eat slowly and take small bites and chew well, you can prevent swallowing that air. Avoid carbonated, bubbly beverages. Soak beans overnight and rinse. Rinse canned beans well. That's what I use. And I just rinse them and that will help. Go low and slow in increasing the intake of high fiber foods. So low means start with a really small amount. For example, beans. A lot of people tell me they have a hard time with beans, but that's just because they may not have that good beneficial gut bacteria that can handle high fiber foods and beans. So you just start with a small amount. Some people have to start with tablespoons. Others can start with maybe a half a cup at a time. And then you're going to increase the amount slowly as your body adjusts. And we do want you to try to increase these foods in the diet little by little, because diversity of plants is important. They have different fibers, different nutrients. So that would promote overall better health. But if you find there's just a food that you do not tolerate well, it's okay to avoid individual foods that bother you. Okay, so when making a transition to a plant-based diet, it's good to think about the dietary spectrum. So on one end, we have the typical American diet that's high in meat, dairy, processed foods, and then the whole food plant-based diet on the other end of the spectrum that's high in fruits, veggies, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. And as you move along that spectrum, you can lower your risk of chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers. And I tell people this is a journey. It takes time. There'll be ups and downs. That's normal. And everybody might go at their own pace or get to different stopping points, and that's perfectly fine. I do want to mention, though, for those that want to reverse chronic conditions, may need to get closer to that whole food plant-based eating plan, though. And I do also want to point out, though, that any movement towards a plant-based diet is beneficial. And this is what a meal might look like. So vegetables should be half the plate. They're the lowest in calories, but highest in nutrients. So they should fill half the plate at least twice a day. They can be fresh or frozen, raw or cooked. I think prepping them ahead is important. So wash and chop and cook a bunch for a few meals. I like to add leafy greens and broccoli slaw to meals because they're ready to go, easy to add. You can do frozen as well. You need at least 3 fruits a day. That could be with the meal or in between as a snack. A quarter of your plate should be your protein, your plant-based protein. So think beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, tofu, tempeh. And then the other quarter is your whole grain. So don't forget those. That's what satiates us. That's your whole grain bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, and things like that. Plus lots of herbs and spices to flavor things up. So the meal is big, it's colorful, it's balanced, it's meant to be very enjoyable. And over here, you see a picture of what a plant-based meal might look like. Because if you're like me, I didn't grow up eating this way. I grew up in Nebraska, and it was like meat and potatoes and a little bit of vegetables or a casserole. And so plant-based meals might look different. They might look like a bowl meal like you see here with the base of leafy greens and other vegetables. They have some plant-based protein like beans and quinoa for the grain and some healthy fats like olives. So this is a great example. And you can do different flavor profiles. I have a Mexican-inspired one, an Asian-inspired one, and just different vegetables, different seasonings. But if you want to do something more familiar, like black bean tacos or a veggie stir fry, that is wonderful too. And this is just to get you thinking of all the different types of foods you can include. These will be handouts that will be available on the webpage, but it shows you different beans, nuts, and seeds you can include, plus different types of whole grains. And then we see all the fruits and vegetables. Most people tell me they eat the same fruits every week, but there's so many. So try to do a rotation and try to get different fruits and vegetables in the diet. A lot of people actually tell me when they move from the standard American diet to a plant-based diet, they feel like they're eating more of a variety of food and not less. And this is a really good representation of calorie density. So at the top, you're going to see leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables. That's like cabbage family vegetables. They're the lowest in calorie density, 100 calories a pound. So you could eat a lot of them and feel full and good and energized without taking in excess calories. And then we have non-starchy vegetables, fruits, starchy and root vegetables like corn, peas, potatoes, whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, and legumes like beans. These are all below 600 calories a pound. So you can eat a lot of them and feel good and full because of the fiber, and nourished because they're the highest in nutrients. As we move that down this chart, we go higher in calorie density. So down here, we see the nuts and seeds. They're in green because they're good. You should eat them every day, but this is why we recommend a handful a day, because they're so high in calorie density. And then look at oils. They're the highest in calorie density. So that's why we recommend minimizing oil use or cooking without it. So the great thing about a plant-based diet is you eat when hungry and until full. You do not have to measure or count calories or macros. Most of the foods you eat will be below 600 calories a pound. So that's going to be the goal. But it's good to keep calorie density in mind. So now I'm going to go through a few different examples of what a breakfast, lunch, and dinner might look like. For breakfast, I tell people, think outside the box. It doesn't have to be traditional breakfast foods. Try to get at least 3 foods so it's balanced and promotes fullness. And get a rotation, maybe some sweet or savory options. So we have toast with nut butter and banana or apple slices, toast with avocado, drizzle of balsamic vinegar and tomatoes, oatmeal with raw nuts or seeds and berries, corn tortillas, non-fat refried beans, leafy greens, and salsa, bagel with hummus and greens like maybe arugula and sliced tomatoes, or whole grain pancakes with frozen blueberries and applesauce. For lunch, you can do a simple sandwich with just some hummus as a spread and veggies, or you can make like a chickpea salad sandwich. You just mash up some chickpeas with a fork, add tahini or hummus as a binder, and then some spicy brown mustard, onion, celery, and put that on whole grain bread or in a wrap. You could do a quesadilla with whole wheat tortilla, hummus, garlic, roasted bell peppers, and spinach, a dark green lettuce salad with cubed butternut squash, red onions, quinoa, and pecans, or a pizza shell. You can top it with tomato sauce or hummus and add tons of veggies. If you do hummus, you can even add some, like a salad to the top of that and just make it pretty easy and quick. For dinner, you could do a baked sweet potato with black beans, frozen corn, chopped green pepper, green onion, or just a potato with black beans, corn, and salsa. Whole wheat pasta with steamed veggies, white beans, and marinara, like a chickpea ragu. Here is a 3-ingredient chili. It's just black beans, corn, and your favorite salsa heated up together. It's super quick and easy. Or quinoa with some frozen vegetables, cherry tomatoes, curry sauce over lettuce, or like I said, bowl meals are great. So this is a Mexican-inspired one with greens, black beans, brown rice, red onions, cucumber, corn, and salsa. So it does help to plan meals ahead of time for the week to stay on track. This is going to help you stay consistent. And it's good to think of meal planning as a form of self-care. If you have some of these things ready to go, it's going to help you throughout the week, save you some time. So once again, most people tell me they forget about fruit. So keep it in sight. Have a bowl of fruit on the counter or put fruit on the shelf in the refrigerator as a reminder. Cook a large batch of whole grains for the week, such as brown rice, quinoa, or pasta. Have it ready to go. You could eat it in different ways if you prefer. Cook a large batch of beans for the week, and if you do that, you are my hero. If you cook your own beans, I just prefer to use the canned ones, and I rinse them, and that is perfectly fine as well. And prep your veggies. It's good to wash and chop and cook, or at least prep them for the week. You can cook them ahead of time if you want to, so that they're ready to go. Put them in clear containers so that you see them and you don't forget. Some people do that the day they get home from the grocery store before they put them in the refrigerator. Others, like me, like to grocery shop one day and then prep the next, and you can do it that way too. And just keep in mind, if you can't do all 4 of these things, you can even start with 1 or 2. Eating out is getting much easier on a plant-based diet. They have many vegan and vegetarian restaurants or restaurants that have options. Here's some tips on each type of category. So Italian, start with a side salad or soup like minestrone or lentil. Pasta with marinara and veggies, or like a spicy pasta sauce. Mexican, you can do bean burritos, veggie fajitas, vegetable enchiladas. Ask for plain black beans or pinto beans instead of the refried, because they will have lard in them typically. Use salsa in place of cheese or sour cream. Asian, you could do rice or noodles with veggies and tofu, with spring rolls, garlic sauteed vegetables, and load up on those steamed veggies. Steakhouses, they may have salads or pasta dishes, but you can also make a meal out of the sides and do like a baked potato with steamed broccoli and marinara sauce. Greek, so many options: hummus, eggplant, grilled veggies, rice pilaf, pita bread, lentil soups, or salads. And for fast food, you can do a bean burrito with salsa instead of cheese, a veggie burger with lettuce, tomatoes, onions, ketchup, and mustard, a veggie sandwich with all the veggies you want, mustard, oregano, vinegar, a cheeseless pizza with tomato sauce and load up on all the veggies. I like to add jalapenos for a lot of extra flavor, or a baked potato with broccoli. And there is an app, it's called Happy Cow, and it helps you find vegan or vegetarian restaurants near you, or restaurants that do contain those types of meals. You can try that out as well. So in summary, consume mostly wholesome and processed plant foods. Include a plant-based protein at each meal, like beans, nuts, or seeds. Fill half the plate with colorful vegetables twice a day. Aim to consume at least 3 fruits a day. Include healthy fats from nuts, seeds, and avocado, but in moderation due to their high calorie density. And include foods high in omega-3 fats daily, like the nuts or the seeds, like the chia seeds. And enjoy meals together, because social connectedness is very important. And they have found that even short, positive social interactions, like sharing a meal, can actually help lower blood pressure and heart rate. And remember the wellness mindset. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So small steps in the right direction become daily habits that result in significant improvements. This is about progression and not perfection. So this is a journey. Take your time with it, be patient with yourself, and reward your successes. Thank you, everybody, for attending the presentation today. And are there any questions?
Yeah, if you have questions, just keep adding them to the Q&A option at the bottom. And thank you, Suzanne, for your presentation. It was very informative, and great tips and recommendations for eating more veggies. And like you said, it's not about the all or nothing mindset. It is possible to eat more vegetables even when you're not vegan or not vegetarian.
Yes.
So we all invite you to do that, to try some of the tips and recommendations that Suzanne made. This webinar was recorded, so we're going to be making the link accessible to all of you. So if you feel like you want to rewatch the presentation or go back to some of those tips and ideas, ask your care manager or your dietitians to share the link with you, and we will be happy to do that. And thank you everyone for attending. It says a lot of you that you invested the time to be here today and to dedicate the time to learn some of this information to apply for your life, and then also to increase not only your knowledge, but then also to start taking those actions that contribute to your health, to your wellness. And again, we are going to continue to offer these webinars, different classes. Our goal is to make one each month, and we also have a support group that meets monthly. It's called the Healthy Hour, and we have that every month. Our next meeting is going to be on the 23rd of May. Also, if you are interested, ask your care manager, your nurse, or your dietitian for the link so you can register. We also are going to be sending invites, so you can look out for those via email. And you can also, like, if you don't see any of our of the email, then look at the promotions folder or other folders. Sometimes our emails can go there, but you're going to get the link, an invitation via email. And again, if you don't find that, if you don't see it, you can always ask your care manager or your dietitian for it. Now let's move to the questions, Suzanne. Let me just see what our watchers and viewers asked. Okay. One of the questions is, do vegans get enough protein?
Yes, actually they do get enough protein, because protein is in a lot of foods like the nuts and seeds, but there is some protein in your vegetables and grains as well. So throughout the day, if you eat a variety of foods, you will meet your protein needs.
Another question is, can being vegan impact your hormones level?
It actually may help, I believe, because plant-based foods are so high in fiber. And what happens is our liver helps regulate our hormone levels, and it will release them into the gastrointestinal tract. And if you have a lot of fiber in your diet, it will help to bind and get rid of excess hormones that could be causing an issue. So usually a high fiber diet can actually help regulate hormone levels, which is a plant-based diet.
Wonderful. Yeah, and another question says, is it possible to, well, it says something like, for those who eat meat, what's the recommended amount to if you are going to eat animal proteins, I guess, like how much is recommended, or what will you say, given your expertise, that it's like a good amount or recommended
Usually
amount?
it's about 5 or 6 ounces a day. So maybe a cup, 2 or 3 ounces at a meal. So making sure it's just a quarter of the plate. So that's what I tell people too, even a plant predominant diet where vegetables are half the plate, a quarter is a whole grain, plus we have a fruit, will still be plant predominant, even if there is a little animal protein included, like a quarter of the plate is how I would look at it.
Yeah, and that's a great reminder that even when you decide, like, it's okay to eat meat, but it's still like important that we make the base of the meals, the whole foods, the veggies, the fruits, the legumes, the whole grains. And then also when we eat those foods, then we feel more satisfied because they're higher in fiber. Animal proteins don't contain any fiber. So at the end of the day, yes, we are going to get some of the protein that the body needs to build muscle, but it's also important to have all of those other for the satiety. And another question here says if you have any recommendations for to lower the bloating when you eat vegan or more veggies, a vegan diet or vegetarian.
Well, I would just like I said, make sure you're taking small bites and chewing well. Some people do better starting with cooked vegetables and not so many raw vegetables. That could be another way to transition. Beans tend to be the hardest thing for most people, so I think making sure you are like rinsing them really well. And most people can start with a half a cup, but some have to start with tablespoons at a time and then really build up. So I think it's just increasing that fiber really slowly. You could even work on one food group at a time, like maybe just more vegetables, but maybe not changing anything else. That might help too, so you don't suddenly change your diet too quickly.
Great. And the last question, I guess it's a little bit more personal from who shared the question, but it says that they know someone who went to a vegetarian vegan diet and they gained weight. They say, like, why does that happen sometimes?
Well, there is a difference between a vegan diet and a whole food plant-based diet. A vegan diet excludes animal products, and that's the main focus. It might be for ethical reasons and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's whole food plant-based. So whole food plant-based excludes most animal products, but the focus is more on what do you eat more of? More fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, beans. Those are all, like I said, below 600 calories a pound. So it could have been that maybe the person was eating more processed plant-based foods that had maybe more oil in them and not a whole food plant-based diet. So there is a difference between the two. So it could have been something like that.
Yeah, like you're saying, there's going to be some breads, pastas, cookies, and like even like treat foods that are going to contain a lot of added things and are still vegan, but not necessarily low in calories. So portion control for anything that it's still like high in calorie or high in sugar, even when it's vegan, it's important for the weight loss.
Yes.
And the last one, I guess, did I ask all of them? Yeah, we have one more. It says, are meat substitute also healthy, even when they're vegan?
So I think those are actually probably better for you, but I call them a transition food. So they're comfortable, we're used to them, they're familiar, but they can have more oil in them. So that does make them a little bit higher in calorie density. So I think they can definitely fit. I would just look for low fat ones, like Beyond Beef and the Impossible Burger are great that we have them as options, but they do put a lot of coconut oil in them to make them fattier. So they're calorie dense, but they have some in the grocery store. You can get like a spicy black bean burger that will be much lower in calories. So I would try to choose the low fat options. And then eventually the goal is to choose more wholesome plant-based foods like beans or lentils. So I do kind of call them like transition foods, and they can definitely be included though.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for your questions, for your participation, and for being here. Thank you, Suzanne, for this great presentation, for the tips and for the recommendations. And again, like Suzanne said in her last PowerPoint, start where you are, and every step you take forward comes towards your health. Maybe, yes, we're saying try to do half of your plate veggies, and if you're not there, start with 1/4 of your plate. Start with with one meal, say, well, for breakfast or for lunch or for dinner, I'm going to make sure to have veggies. Once you feel comfortable then move to another meal and say, well, now I'm going to also include veggies with lunch or as a snack. Sometimes it's also possible to eat more whole foods by including them as snacks. You can always have sliced veggies with some hummus, or you can have fruit with a little bit of peanut butter. Those things, it's also opportunities to include those whole foods. And again, if you learn 1, 2, 3 things here and you apply 1 or 2, it was worth your time. And also if you need any more support, we have dietitians here to work with you. You can, if you are not already assigned to one, you can always ask your nurse to refer you to a dietitian, and we will be happy to provide nutrition services and work with each of you individually. And if you already are working with a dietitian, then ask more tips, share with them what you learned, and also we will love to see which of these tips you're able to apply and implement. Thank you, everyone. And again, the recording is going to become available. If you are interested or want to rewatch the video or show it to other family members, just let us know, and we will share the link with you. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.